Well, hi guys, this is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on the Supernatural Show, and we've got a full house tonight, and we've got what I think will probably become somewhat of a legendary guest today. That hopefully he'll be coming back again, um, and we've created a special name for him, and we're going to call him Jeremiah 333 Doug. Okay. And Doug is here to talk to us about his understandings of the mathematics related to everything in the world, the way the occult work. Doug's been studying it for something like, I think he said, he'll clarify for us here in a minute, but like 20 years or something like that. And he has got it pretty much down to a science as to understanding the code by which these guys operate with numbers and letters. And he's going to be getting into that in depth in this show. And we're going to be going to that right away. But we got just a couple of other people to say hello to that are here with us as well today. We've got Dan, our advisor, and he's again here today with us. Dan from More Than a Conqueror YouTube channel. And of course, we've got our lovely co-host here today again with us, Shannon. And Shannon, what in the supernatural is going on with you today?
Oh, well, most of you guys know I have had a lot of head injury issues. And ever since then, I have just been having dreams that are absolutely supernatural and incredible. And this morning, woke up from, one of the most intense and interesting dreams I've had in a while. And just everything was chaotic this morning. So, my son was having a hard time, kind of had a meltdown. So I appreciate all of your prayers, guys. They really are helpful. And, that being said, I'm excited for our show today. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to Doug and what he has to say. And yeah, pretty incredible.
All right. Well, Dan, what in the supernatural is going on with you, brother?
Oh, we had some events last night, but it only lasted about an hour and a half, and we were able to get it bound and cast out. So everything's calm, cool, and collected.
So you're over spending some time at Windwalker Ranch, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna have to get a complete full update from you very soon. Maybe on the next show we could do something like that.
I've got a lot of things. I've been with the weather. I've been somewhat snowbound here,
right?
And I need to really. I'm hoping to get out for a little while this afternoon, but in the next few days, there's quite a bit I need to go and look into.
Right. Yeah.
Especially after the events of last night. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to our special guest today, Jeremiah 333 Doug. And Doug, I appreciate you being here, buddy. And I would just say relax and just I know you well enough already to know you got something to talk about. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can start out however you like, my brother.
Okay, I hope it's beneficial to everyone that's listening. I'm a Christian. This research that I'm working on it's been in the works for 30 years.
Oh.
I've got some people that help me. We stay in contact quite a bit. What we found over the years is that gematria, and it could be anything, because what's going on with gematria is in this spiritual battle, everything that we're doing here is basically cast down from a fight between good and evil. So in the process, numbers become important. Alphanumeric expressions are important. You'll see that our God is a God of numbers. The Bible is full of them. And what a lot of people don't know about the numbers is that they are precise when it comes to a planet and planetary and celestial motion. For
Yep.
instance, most of what we learned in school, we were programmed from the get-go. If you went to public schools,
Yep.
not many people know what the elite know, which is that what's above is basically a celestial clock. If you go in the Bible, you'll see many instances where 40 years is used and 40 days. That actually comes from Venus. If you look at Venus tonight in the sky, in exactly 40 years, it will be in the same place in the sky. The other thing that it does, it goes in retrograde motion for 40 days. There are two other things that I could get into that are part of the Venus equation, so to speak. Venus has a transit that's 243 years long. It also has a day. It's the longest day of any planet, or that's so they say. It takes for it to turn one time 243 days. So you have this 243 number both in the Venus transit year and in days. And, the Bible is replete with the use of 40 years. You can see where it happened to Moses. Moses and everything that was of Egyptian descent died out. All that had to die out. That was a 40-year Venus cycle period. So in 40 days, there's many events in the Bible that use 40 days, but all this stuff is based on Venus, which is called the morning star. And what I always found unusual in the Bible is that you've got both Jesus called we got him as the true morning star, and then you've got Lucifer as the morning star. So what you've got is a thesis, the Word of God, against an antithetical expression. Satan basically means adversary. So everything that God's done mathematically or in the Bible there's basically an antithetical expression to it. And
Now
from
you
what
said
I found,
you said antithetical. The other day when I asked you to clarify that, you're saying
okay,
basically
that's
opposite or
anti
image.
is opposite or against, and thesis would be word. So the word came down in flesh. You look in John 1. So you've got Jesus, and then you've got the opposite of that, which would be the Antichrist.
Right.
A
Always
lot
a mirror image. That's something I've been talking about, is how, Jesus came down as the expression of God, the product from Father, but Satan will do the exact same thing and will have a son in flesh on earth as well,
absolutely,
based on a time schedule, the clock that is in the heavens.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So and the thing is, it's not like you're out there on the limb talking about this stuff, because if you go to Psalms 90, it tells you to count days for wisdom. You look at Ecclesiastes and some of the other books, and it says all days are numbered, and there's a time and a season for everything. So if you want to be wise, you've got to count the days. And once you find out that the days are precise, it's incredible. The thing, what was amazing to me at the start of this process, and I'll talk about this in another episode, is a spiritual encounter I had that got me going down this path. But I started trying to find out when Jesus' birth and death days were. Let me get a little bit of water here.
Yeah. Me and Dan have been talking, and Shannon too. We've been studying that exact topic.
See, you think about it. Look at the church fathers when Christianity started. They were basically they knew all the other birthdays and death dates, Caesar's, whatever. But why don't they know the ones for Jesus? Well, the reason why, this is what I found out, is that because he's perfect, and once he's cast into God in flesh, things are set in motion that are perfect. When you agree, wouldn't you think maybe that the mathematics around him would be perfect? They wouldn't be haphazard and what I would call random. And what the church or the ones that's infiltrated the church that work for the devil have done is try to keep all that stuff secret, because they know once this stuff is found out and people can count the days for wisdom, it's going to be either game on or game over, because this kind of stuff is basically part of the parousia. It's the awakening, and it's to understand what they're actually fighting against. For instance, the date that I found to be the birthday of Christ is September 23rd. You know, we had the virgin birth in the sky back on 9/23/2017. That was a sign in the sky. What they did with the calendar, though, is they eliminated the 0 year. If you've got days, weeks, and months going up to a year, wouldn't that be a 0 year? And I had a teacher, I think it was in the 3rd grade. She said, she actually laughed about it, but it stuck in my mind. She said, well, why would they start it on 1 AD when you've got this before it? And I thought, wow. So I think what they did was they eliminated the conception and birth of Christ. And all the mathematics, all the durations that I've come up with point to 1 BC actually being 00 AD. And what day do you think the conception of Christ would be if it's a perfect system? It would be on the beginning of the calendar, which would be a 1/1 day. Now, what I found is that the human gestation period is, in some camps, it's 266 days long, and then there's birth. Well, guess what happens on the 266th day? It's 9/23.
Yep.
So if you go look at the old books, Jubilees, it's God states in there that when people get away from the truth and from following his law, this goes back to Enoch's time, because the original calendar was a solar calendar that's 364 days long. Well, the one we've got now is 365.25, or 365 and then 366 every 4th year for a leap year. They took this calendar, the Gregorian calendar, and they fashioned this thing around the Antichrist. The day and hour is not known, because the true calendar is 364 days. This thing is 365.25. So it's a day and a quarter off. If you go look at what 12/25 is, it's the 7th day of the Roman Saturnalia festival. That starts on the 18th and it ends on the 25th of December. This day was called Sol Invictus, or still is for some people. Now, the thing about Sol Invictus is it was actually an ode to Apollyon, which your biblical people will know that is the name of the Antichrist. So this thing, the Sol Invictus, is designed for that. Then Apollo is the false sun god of Zeus. So it makes perfect sense that the opposite would be doing something like that. So if you look at what I found is that whether it's actually the birthday of the first Babylonian king, Sargon Nimrod, or not, they use it as his birthday. So 12/25 is his birthday, and the sign of Nimrod is X. What do they call Christmas now? Xmas.
Yep.
Okay. So there's the first case for it. Now, what happens is, if you take what I did find is also the death date of Christ, which was April 3rd, 33 AD. What's unusual about this number, April 3rd, in a non-leap year is the 93rd day of the year. And one of the guys that's in my group told me about this. I about fell out of my chair. I could never figure out why there was a 93 relationship, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But that 93rd day is what
There's 93 people on the Supernatural channel watching right now.
Everything's synchronistic, man.
Yep.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's 90.
It's just like you and I were talking the other day, and the numbers were dead on. I was like, wow.
Yep.
That's the way it works. But
that's how I've learned too, is that everything is simple and perfect.
Yes.
And we're looking for things behind rocks and everywhere, and it's right in our face, and it's simple and perfect.
Absolutely. Now, the Thelemists, which came along at the end of the 19th century, that are nothing more than theosophists, Luciferians, they greet each other with the number 93. And I thought, oh boy, now we're off to the races. So what these guys do is they celebrate the death of Christ, but for their reasons that they killed the Son of God. So you got the 93rd day. Now add a human gestation period of 266 days. It's on 1225. It ends on Sol Invictus, which is the birthday of Nimrod, Sargon Nimrod. Now go from what I say is the birthday of Christ, the 266th day of year, the end of human gestation, to be born, and add 93 days is 1225 again. So what these guys have done, because they try to make an antithetical expression, if you go and look at the actual conception date of Christ as a 1-1 day in the hypothetical 00 AD year, it's 7 days behind. So if you've got
now
7 days,
100. Now there's 111 in the number count of number of people watching.
Oh, this is going to get good.
I'm serious.
Yeah, and you know where this one's going. You know exactly where it's going. But what they did, in my opinion, is they took the conception of Christ and they created an antithetical expression. Now 7 days in reverse.
Now there's 116, which is 9/11 upside down and backwards.
Yeah. Okay. But what I found is that what's opposing God, and I think it goes back to the 200 fallen angels that's in the book of Enoch, that descended on Mount Hermon and made an eternal pact against God. I really think that these Roman emperors and some of these people through time are actually possessed by these fallen angels. And here's why. It's because the mathematics around these characters really start adding up. For instance, if you take a look at the calendar that we use right now, look at what the names of the days and the months are. In the Bible, it tells you not to have any association with false gods, correct? What's on the names of these things? You've got all the days named after basically false gods, and the months are basically the same way. And here's what they did. What we're dealing with in antithetical expression is a Roman Saturnian death cult. Now take the first Caesar. They inserted him, and he was deified. So this guy's a false god. He's in the 7th month. He's the first Caesar. Then the next month is his nephew, who was the first emperor, the 8th month, Augustus. So here we've got the first Caesar and the first emperor in the 7th and 8th months. And then they moved September through December over. Sept is 7. DEC is 10.
Right.
You see the misnomer there? It's actually moved over to the 9 through 12 positions, and it should be the 7 through 10 positions. So this whole thing is a setup. And in later broadcasts, we'll talk about who I think the Antichrist is, if you want me to talk about it. But the mathematics around this guy is mind-blowing. I shake my head every day, and new things come into the equation, and some of it we've shared personally. I've sent it to you in text and different things. And
go ahead and tell us, give us a couple of examples. You don't have to go all the way into depth, but tell us who you think and give us a few reasons, the top reasons why.
Let me get to this other part first. This Roman Saturnian death cult is based on 111. Like what you saw earlier, it's the soul magic square base root. Now, everybody, I can't tell you how many people I've heard, and some will say, yeah, it's in the Bible. It's not. They'll say, well, the United States is not the Bible. It depends on what perspective you're looking at. If you're followers of Christ, what this place is a setup. It's the width and breadth of the lie of Satan is absolutely incredible. This whole thing is a setup. What we are as followers of Christ, we're in the spirit. Everything's on a spiritual level. There's spiritual tribes. The United States is the ones, the followers of Christ, are actually in Ephraim. If you go to Zechariah 9, there's a catalyst event coming. It says the first tribe to be restored to the bow of Judah is Ephraim. Okay, that everything I've got points to the United States as being that. And what's happened here is that because of man's law and where we're at today, the erosion of conformity, is all of this stuff was processed to get us away from the kingdom, which is where we want to be on that level under Christ. You know, one of the big missions of Christ was to restore the house of Israel. And here's where some crazy math comes in. If you take the year that the northern kingdom of Israel was destroyed by the Assyrians, which was 722 BC, let's go to a big event that not many people know about, and they don't talk about it anymore. It happened on the very future birthday of the United States. It was 1054 AD, and the Bible tells you to watch for signs in the heavens. Now do the math. Look at the duration. 722 BC plus 1054 AD is 1776 years, right?
Yep.
I can't make that up. So, what 111 is the base root of soul magic square math. Now multiply it times 2 is 222, times 2 is 444, times 2 is 888, times 2 is, guess what, 1776. Now, take this actual future birth date of the United States, which July 4th, 1054 AD, a supernova appeared in the sky, and this thing stayed in the sky for 642 days. And go to the actual birthday of the United States. 1054 AD plus 722 years, which we used earlier, is the exact birthday of the United States. I honest to God, I don't think you can make that up. It's dead on.
It's a little perfect, ain't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. And here's what's crazy about this. These signs in the sky are actually, they're foreboding. They have future omens. The first major schism in Christianity, which was between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, happened on 7/16/1054 AD, 12 days later. So that's a whole different avenue. That thing right there, once you see this stuff, it'll blow your mind. It's got to do with the U.S. nuclear testing program. I got shut off of Godlike Productions for posting everything that I had on that. I'm pretty sure the site got shut down for about 4 hours, but it's there and it can't be undone. But this 111 goes a lot deeper. What this cult uses is the birthday of Rome. They're into seed sorcery, trying to create antithetical expressions against God's timeline in hopes that they're going to break his word, which they never do. You take April 21st, 753 BC, that is the birth of Rome. And in a non-leap year, guess what day April 21st is? It's 111th day. It's the 111 day. Now, if you take the value of April 21st and add 4 months and 21 days, guess what day it always lands on? 9/11. Then add 111 days on the other side of it for the mirror of it. It goes right to the end of the year. It ends up at the end of the year. So this thing is designed for 9/11 to be a date within their code. What these guys did is that whenever they started Rome, they created a system from the birth. Then you go to democracy. What does democracy really mean? You got demon, and cracy or cratic is to rule. So it's demon rule. And you've got God's rule, God's law, which is perfect. And then you've got this democracy created, which was done in the streets of Athens in the year 508 BC. This Roman cult, this Saturnian death cult, uses 666 and 911 quite a bit. If you take and go, and here's where it goes back to Sol Invictus, Nimrod's birthday. The first celebration of that, and you can go on Wikipedia or any of these places, you'll see that the first celebration, the Ode to Apollo, Apollyon, the coming Antichrist, was on 1225, 158 AD. Now add 753 BC, the year that Rome was born, to 158 AD. It's 911 years. Now add the year that democracy was born. There's seed sorcery crap. 508 BC, add that to 158 AD. It's 666 years. So there again, I don't think you can make that up. I think it's perfectly by design, and it gets even worse than that. And this is where it goes into the book of Daniel. I prayed for the book of Daniel to be unsealed for right at 30 years. And most of what I've done, and why I use this Jeremiah 33:3 number, is it says it's a heavyweight verse. It's call unto me and I will tell you unsearchable things you know it's not. So over the years, I've been given a lot of information because I've meditated on that verse. And also what I have been given, I'm quite sure of, is the reasoning and what's going on with the book of Daniel. For instance, one of the big verses that's in there is Belteshazzar. The writing on the wall was many, many tekel of parson. Okay, there are two values that come out of that. It's 126 shekels, and it's 2,520 gerahs. Those are two monetary values, but the reason why they use actually the 2520 is how many days is in the apocalypse. And all of this stuff is based on, in the Bible it says, unless the days are shortened, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake. So this stuff goes all the way back to the life of Christ. His life was based on the prophetic year of Daniel. And it was also this 2,520 days divided by 7, which is also Revelation math, divided by 7 equals 360, which is a Daniel prophetic year. So what they did with what happened with this thing is that the 126 can actually be used as a date. And this is not out on an island. There's other things where they use Jewish gematria and create dates, but this one is of primary importance. 1900 was a big year. That's when the Germans started excavating Pergamum, which in Revelations 2, I believe it is, it says that it's the throne of Zeus Satan. Of all the things in antiquity for the Germans to excavate, they started in this year, 1900. Well, take that date, take 126 shekel day and turn it into January 26, 126. And what's unique about this number is that 26 is the number of God. If you take and look at simple gematria, G is 7, O is 15, and D is 4. The sum of that's 26. 2 plus 6 is also 8, which is the infinity number. Now, the other one is the YHVH Tetragrammaton. Everybody can look this up. Its value is 26. So the date actually says one God. 126, 1900. Now, go exactly 2,520 weeks in the future. This blew my mind when I first saw it. It's 5/14, 1948. Rebirth Israel. Yeah. So
It's a little
those
bit
numbers.
on the exact side, ain't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where it gets really crazy. And what you'd have to do is, and NASA uses this thing for some reason. It's called a Julian count counter, NASA.org. I could probably send you the link to it later on and people can confirm it. But if you go back to the year that Julius Caesar became the first Caesar, it was in 48 BC. You see a comparison here in 1948, 48 BC, first Caesar run. Take the day, the 126 shekel day, 126, 48 BC, and go to 7/4/1776. Day inclusive, it is to the day, I'm not kidding you, 666,000 days. Absolutely. I'm like, wow. So these things are done on purpose. There's a higher form of intelligence, and whether you want to consider it good or evil, there's a war going on there, and we're basically the players on the stage right here, and we're given a choice to either take temptation or not. So there are people that are going to take the bait, and the prophecy is going to be fulfilled. And if you use the mathematics around these people, it's like dialing in and picking up a frequency and knowing, hey, I know what you are, buddy. I know what you're doing here. I can see. I see what you're posing as. So that 126/48 BC, now go to the 126/1900 day, which is basically the start of the end of times. What happens? You got 1948 years. So there's an antithetical expression that starts the reign right in the year of the reign of Caesar. I think there must have been probably some proclamation that day. But anyway, it's dead on. And what makes it even more compelling is the fact that God made a covenant with Abraham. Okay. In his 75th year, he said his children would inherit the land. Well, we're in the 75th year now. If you take the birth year of Abraham, Anno Mundi, which is from creation, it was 1948 Anno Mundi. And then God, in God's perfect timing, or when he utters things, that's the thing about it. It's so mind-blowing here. And this is what they do not want you to know, is that this stuff is precise. So you go into this time, into AD, and from the conception of Christ, go to 5/14, 1948. There you go. Same numbers. Now add 75 years, 2023. So
What date
thinking
in 1948?
Huh?
What date in 1948?
5/14, 1948 was the rebirth of Israel.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you've got the father
That's
of
when
Israel
everything started going down so fast.
born in 1948 AM, and then you've got God's fulfillment, the start of it. This thing's happening in 1948 AD. I really don't think you can make that up. Let's keep on going with this. Now, the flood was in the year 1656 AM Anno Mundi. The mathematics around that's pretty mind-blowing too, but God said that he told Noah, he said, my spirit will prevail with flesh 120 years. That's what, Genesis 6:3, I believe. Okay. I know it's in Genesis, but if you take and add 120 years, which is the lifespan of Moses also, to 1656, it's 1776 AM. And all the sources that I've read, that was the year that Sargon Nimrod became the first king, or the first false god of Babylon. He was deified as a sun god. So there you go. You've got the very start of this thing on 1776 AM, and then you've got the last chapter of the Mystery Babylon, which is occurring in Ephraim in a curse, which is the United States on 1776 AD. I don't think you can make that up. And to add to the suspense of it, there's a day count from the birth of Rome. If you take that birthday of 421, the value of Lucifer in simple gematria is 74. Now go 74 Lucifer days from the birth of Rome on 421. It lands on 7/4, 1776. And all of my mathematics point to that day, Independence Day, mind you, that was the day that Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit. So we've been bamboozled. You've got 7/4, 1776, the same year as Nimrod was deified as a false sun god. Then you've got 7/4, which is a Lucifer number. You go 74 days forward from that, and it lands on 7/4, and it's called Independence Day. And it's 666,000 days from the year that Julius Caesar was made the first Caesar. I'm like, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here. So if you take the 74 days times 24 hours in a day, you've also got 1,776 hours. So there's absolute precision in the way this stuff is done. Let's see, I could go probably 2 or 3 different directions on this. Let's look at, here's another one you can look at. On the Jewish gematria value of Lucifer is 323. And what these Roman, Saturnian, death cult people do with that is they actually use a day for it. It's March 23rd. And here's where it gets crazy. If you take what was my thinking on that? Okay. March 23rd is the day, if you go the day before, that's the day that the Georgia Guidestones was dedicated. March 22nd, which is a skull and bones number. So what these guys do is actually honor Lucifer on the E. And this thing was created or dedicated in 1980. Well, here's where it gets really, really weird. And it tells me that Jesus Christ is involved in this big time. If you go to the day, I think it's Spirit of 76 is in this 75th year. Something big's going to happen. But if you look at the day that this thing was actually destroyed, it was destroyed on 7/6/2022. And here's where it gets really, really weird. If you go look at the timestamp, if you go to enough YouTube videos, different places, it was at 4:03, 4 hour 3 minutes and 33 seconds a.m. The exact time. What did I tell you was the day of it is finished? Christ dying on the cross for us. 4:03:33. When I saw that timestamp, I literally fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe it. And then it's done on 7/6. It's almost like, hey guys, y'all better be watching out because something's getting ready to come down the pike. I would say what we're probably going to be looking at is that missing year at the beginning they took out of time is going to be reinserted in time. If you look at Isaiah 30:26, it's the favorable year of the Lord. And what did Christ read from whenever he went into the synagogue? He read from Isaiah 61, which was, I'm sorry, 30:26 is I'm sorry, that's I got off. It's Isaiah 61 is where he read from. That was favorable year of the Lord. That's something else. My bad. But if you go look at Jewish gematria for the word God, is 61. Now you're beginning to see there's a certain person born in 1961. So When you see that, you can't unsee it. Anyway, I think what happened is that it wasn't for that time, because he rolled up the scroll and stopped midstream. It's because if it says it is finished when he's on the cross, that means that what we've got here is going to go back to that time.
Mhm.
It's going to have to loop around, because it's the Alpha and Omega process that's going on here. We're actually going back to the cross, is what I'm seeing in this thing. But he did that on purpose. The fulfillment of this thing, the favorable year of the Lord, is for a later time, and I think it's now. I'll have to do is prepare the mathematics, what I've got on that, for a later broadcast. But just for the time being, I'll leave it at that. The
Doug,
other thing, when I was talking, I'm not going to close out this Isaiah 30:26. That's what God actually says. He promises everybody that he's going to restore the sun to 7 times its brightness, and the moon will be as the sun. So here's what I think happened. The golden firmament got cracked whenever the flood was here. This place was like an incubator, and it was a lot brighter, and people lived a lot longer. And there's a lot of coding that goes into things. For instance, you look at the first man that was born. Christ died on 93rd day, right? According to Gregorian calendar, April 3rd, non-leap year. Guess how old Adam was when he died? 930 years old. Now, in this time, if you go to Psalms 90, there's 2 different ages in there. The first one is 70 years. It says that's the normal lifespan of mankind, and then in strife it would be 80 years. So take and add 70 years to 930. First man, it's 1,000. What is 1,000 years to God? It says a day. So I think what's going on here is that we're living in an anomaly. This thing with the moon and this dead star up here, and there's a lot going on with this moon thing. I talked to you the other day. We had a long conversation on the phone about this. The Babylonians had a name for the moon, and still do. Akkadian Babylonian language, they call it sin. And the moon is on the
called it what?
Meton. Sin. It's actually pronounced sin in the Babylonian language. So what they've got there is this moon, this body, returns to its same place in the sky every 19 years. If anybody's taking notes, go look up the Metonic cycle, Metonic. It was attributed to a Greek. They named it for Meton, but it's 19 years. The moon returns to its same place in the sky every 19 years. And what I found is that the number 19 is associated with sin. For instance, AI. A is 1, I is 9, right? Okay. The start of this process, which is like going back to the days of Noah, was 1900. So we've got a century with 19, which is a sin century. And the players that did things around that time frame in the not 19th century, 20th century, but called 19, they're part of this thing. The ones that really, I'll go ahead and tell you what I'll be using in the next episode is the connection between Adolf Hitler and Barack Obama. A lot of people think that's crazy talk, and I thought it was for a long time.
So many people here would call it crazy talk.
Well, here's what happened in my research, and this was back about 7 years ago. I kept having these numbers pop up that associated Obama with Hitler, and I was like, this is crazy. These numbers are precise, and they're against the life of Christ. Well, I prayed on it pretty heavy, and I was led by the Holy Spirit to Martha Trowbridge's work. This woman's probably put in over 20 years, and she found out that, according to her stuff, and if you see the mathematics around this, it's mind blowing. She brought a part of the equation that I didn't have, and now it fits like a glove. He's the grandson of Hitler, according to her, and she's got a lot of in-depth research, and a lot of people try to say she's a fraud. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
We had someone here in the comments saying that before you even said it, Doug.
Really?
I just have to interject that this is literally what I was dreaming. I'm sorry. I've been having chills since you said all of that.
Well, good, because so somebody in the comments said that it was garbage, basically, right?
No, they said that you were correct. That hit.
Okay. Hey, good.
No,
all right, that's what I wanted to hear, because
I just said it before you said it, because I already knew it, and I knew what you probably were going to say, but then they said it.
Good. I'm glad the listeners are saying that, because there's something here. And once you see the mathematics around this, and the fact that they've tried to cover up the actual birth of him, the length that they've gone to create the lie is absolutely incredible, which tells me that there is a group that in this Roman Saturnian death cult, Luciferians, whatever you want to call the lost, they know when these people are coming, because way I see it is that they don't have a book of life name. And that goes back to the foundation of the earth. The only way you're going to go to heaven is you've got to have a book of life name. So these people that are, I would call multi-generational Satanists, that are eternally damned, that are basically possessed by fallen angels, they know what they are. That, you can call it reincarnation, whatever you want to, but they're stuck in that. That's why they like this 666 thing. This 666 thing has to do with time as well. If you go look at time as what we see, you would think it would be on a decimal system, right? There would be 10 hours, maybe 20 hours and 100 minutes an hour, whatever. It would be, I would think you could probably create a clock that would be more decimal oriented like everything else is, but no, we actually use a Babylonian system. The whole concept of the Antichrist comes from the Babylonians. It's Mystery Babylon. So 666 is actually in our time. For instance, if you look at Matrix, the word MA is cut man. Now look at TRI and X, which is the sign of Nimrod. That's 3 X's. What position is the X in the alphabet? It's 24. It's 2 plus 4. So that means 3 X's together. Try X is 666. So you've got fallen man in the 666 matrix. And then you go look at Sirius.
Why Elon uses that thing.
There you go. Yeah, they're talking about something coming up X. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd mentioned earlier that the true father of Obama was Malcolm X. Well, if you do the gematria on Malcolm, he mated with the daughter of Hitler, according to Martha Trowbridge. So Malcolm in simple gematria reduces to 6. His old name Little reduces to 6. And then look at probably the only man in the history of the world. It got changed to X, which is the sign of Nimrod. It is worth 6-2. So the name of what I think is the father Barack Obama is 666. The mathematics around him is absolutely incredible. But that's really for another discussion. Well, I'm kind of going off in a tangent on that. I guess one thing that would really be important to talk about is the actual year count, and everything fits like a glove when you use Bishop Ussher's count. He did a really his lifetime was devoted to uncovering the actual years, dates of biblical events. And he came up from creation to the end of the before Christ age of 4,004 years. Okay. The Jewish calendar, which I'm convinced is totally false, here's where it gets weird. There's 3,761 years from creation to the Anno Domini age on the Jewish calendar. Here's where the code comes in on that. There's a code that's used for Christ. It's 37. And the other number for Jesus is 37. The Christ number is 73. And this goes back to Genesis 1:1. I'll talk about that in a minute. But look at what the other number is. It's 61. It's the Jewish gematria value of God. So you've got God in flesh coming down right exactly when he's supposed to be. And the Jewish year, what they did was they used 37 and 61. I don't think you can make that up. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Take 4,004 true years and subtract 3,761 from it. It's 243 years. Where have you seen that number before? That's a Venus transit. Now it gets even crazier with that. Go back to Jasher 3:12, and some people say, "Oh, well, you don't want to use Jasher. That's not part of the Bible." Well, okay. Let's go ahead and keep that argument. I'll say you're right, but guess what's in the Bible? I'm pretty sure 2 references to using the book of Jasher in the Bible. So for the Bible to use Jasher as a reference means that there's some credibility there, right? Okay. Yep. Go to Jasher when you get off of this thing, or maybe even now, go to Jasher 3:12. And you're going to find something really, really strange. Enoch ruled this world for 243 years, which is a Venus transit. Yep. That's crazy in my book. But I really think what happened with Enoch is that Enoch had heaven was on earth as close as wise as Enoch was. I think that the actual kingdom of heaven was as close to being here as it ever was during his reign. And then after he moves out and goes into the land of snows, which I think is the ring, the Antarctica ring, and ascends into heaven. The weird thing is that
call the movie The Lord of the Rings for nothing.
Yeah. Methuselah, here's where it gets really weird. That year that he finished his reign on the earth, Adam died, 930 years. Okay. Also, Methuselah was 243 years old. Yeah. What did I say was the flood year? It was 1656. Now subtract, if you take 969 years, then you're going to come you're going to come back to that. It's all the mathematics works out because there's 726 years left until the flood, and that's from the death of Adam to the that's from death of Adam to the flood. If you add 243 plus 726, that's the lifespan of Noah, which is 969 years. What's weird about that is that these people knew this stuff. You take the Jewish gematria value of Lucifer 323, well, times 2 is 646. That'd be number man, number human chromosomes. Now add 323 again. It's 969, which is the lifespan of Methuselah. And if you look at the planet Saturn, supposedly I think the equator or in the middle of it, this rotational velocity is 9.69 kilometers per second. So the mathematics around that planet and other planets are precise, and they use this stuff against biblical figures. For instance, the first lie, the Apollo program is named for what? Apollo, or for the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole program, what I've got is a total lie. It shows it's a total lie. But here you go. You've got the first fake moon landing mission taken off on 7/16. Guess what date that is? That's the same date that the first schism in the Christian church, major Christian church, took place. 12 days after supernova appears on the future birthday of the United States, 7/16, 1054 AD. Roman Catholic Church breaks off from Eastern Orthodox. Well, fast forward. Here you go. You've got 7/16, 1969, Apollo 11 takes off. So it's the same day. And the reason why they use this 7/16 day, and I really believe it's the eve of whenever 2 Thessalonians 2 was going to be fulfilled. It said, don't believe any man that the gathering of the Lord doesn't occur until this Antichrist figure goes into the temple and proclaims himself as a god. Okay. Take the Lucifer day, 323, and add 3 months and 23 days to it. It's 7/16. Now, that number will keep popping up, and it's popped up through time. But they lift this thing off, and they lifted it off at I think it was UTC, 13 hours and 32 minutes. You can go check this out unless they changed it. And they do change things sometimes just to keep people off. But you look at 1332, it's 666 times 2. So that's done on purpose. The whole thing was designed around the Antichrist. It's a lie, and Satan's a liar. He's the father of lies. So the only power that these things have got is that they have to perpetrate a fraud on mankind. That's why all these secret societies have been using 666 years, weeks, months. All this stuff is coded. 9/11 is used. 2,666 is another number they use, and I prove that. Let me digress for just a second. They love to use this start year of the birth of Rome. It was on the 111 day, 421, 753 BC. Guess what happens in 1913? 1913 is whenever the beast monetary system was created, the Federal Reserve. 1913 plus 753 AD plus 753 BC is 2,666 years. What they did was, if you go back and look at the simple gematria of God, which is the number 26, they fused it with the mark of the beast. That number is used all through time. There's several instances of where this thing was used. I can prove it. That I think what I'll do is collect my thoughts and put it in another episode. But just to show you where this thing's going, the first A-bomb that was successfully detonated was done in the state of New Mexico. That was done on, guess what? 7/16, 1945 at the Trinity site. Imagine that. So they used the 7/16 date again. 2,666 days later, on 11/1 day, 1952, was the first hydrogen bomb blast, the thermonuclear blast in the Ivy Mike program, which I think was a ritual against Archangel Michael. It's 2,666 days from the first blast, which was 7/16, 1945, to the hydrogen bomb 11/1, 1952. You can look that up. You can do the math if you want to, but that's done on purpose. The state was picked because they used the 666 code on this thing. If you look at, there's two states that in English gematria equal 666. One of them is New York, and the other one is New Mexico.
Yep.
New Mexico is an unusual word. I did the research on the word Mexico, and it comes from an ancient Mayan word, Makitli, which means God of War. Okay. So that means that the actual meaning of the 666 state, which is New Mexico, is New God of War. Wouldn't you agree? The planet Mars is their God of War. Guess what Mars does? If you look at Mars tonight in the sky, exactly in 47 years, it will be in the same place. So, guess what number state admitted into the Union New Mexico is? 47. So you've got a 666 English gematria state that has a blast on 716 day, which I think is the eve of when the Antichrist is going in this temple, because the book of Daniel math, oh, it works out with it. Oh my God, I'm still blown away at the
Hey,
math.
Doug,
Yes.
you also know that Hobbs is known as the gateway to hell, right?
The what?
Hobbs, New Mexico is known as the gateway to hell.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I did not know that, but that's good information. But what adds to the mystery of this thing is look at where Obama started his political career. It was in Chicago, where Anton LaVey was born, and Hillary Clinton. 60606 zip code. What starts in Chicago and runs through New Mexico? Highway 66.
Yep.
Guess what leg the Devil's Highway, and that got changed by Bill Richardson, who was a regular at Bohemian Grove, because they started seeing me and some other people were hot on their trail, man. Like, we know what you guys are doing here. Yeah, you've got this whole thing laid out for the Antichrist. You got Route 66, and the sixth leg of it is Highway 666 running through New Mexico. You can't make that up. Maybe one or two things you could count up to coincidence, but when you start seeing that all of this stuff is absolutely precise, it's telling you one thing, that the ones that are behind all this garbage have figured out what they have to do to be a total lost, fallen angelic. Something is in their ear. They're creating a system that is trying to defeat God, His word, against this garbage. This whole country was laid out by the Masons. A good example of that is the God longitude runs right through Washington, D.C. And if you go back and look at the birth date of Washington, D.C., guess what day it is? It's 7/16/1790. It's the same day as the A-bomb blast, and also as the fake lunar mission going off. And that whole program is set up around Barack Obama. Once you see the Martha Trowbridge math, that's really for another episode. What I need to do is sit down and take notes, and I'll fill in all the blanks on this stuff. But this 7/16 date goes all the way back to our adversary, which is the fake religion of Islam. Their calendar starts on 7/16/622 AD. Then you've got the first schism in Christianity, 7/16/1054 AD. You want to know how many blasts were in the U.S. nuclear testing program? 1,054. You know why they did that? They were celebrating the first schism. They took the year and they actually made the number of atomic blasts. The number of above ground blasts were 216. That is a Babylonian source code. It's 6 times 6 times 6. Okay. Now, what day does everybody think that Obama was born? 8/4/1961. What is 19? Sin. What is 61? God of sin. 8/4 is the 216th day of the year. I really don't think you can make that up. It's 6 times 6 times 6 day. Sin. son of perdition, trying to play God, 61 number. So that day itself lends to it. But they had 216 above ground blasts in this program. If you go look at where these things were blasting off at, it was mostly Pacific atolls and the U.S. Southwest. What happens when you send a radioactive mushroom cloud up over there in the air, I don't know, 30, 40, 50,000 feet, how high this thing goes? There's two things that's going to affect it. Where does all of our winds come from? If you ever watch a Weather Channel, from the west. It's prevailing westerlies and the jet stream. So what happens when you take radioactive clouds and blow them all over the world?
Not
Cancer
good.
rates have gone through the roof since 1940. Would you argue with me on that? No, I didn't think so. That's what it's death by 1,000 cuts. If you take the end of this program was on guess what day? September 23rd, 1992. 47 in the 47th year, God of War, after 7/16/1945, the first atomic blast at the Trinity site in 666 state, 47th state, new God of War state. I'm like, it's starting to be pretty obvious that this thing is absolutely by design. So if you take that, the birthday of Christ, which they ended this thing on, September 23rd, 1992, and take 1776, the beginning of the country, add 216 years, 6 times 6 times 6. It's 1992. I really don't think any of this is conjecture at this point. It's
Well, if I didn't know any better, I would think that you were making all this up. But I happen to know what you're speaking of, and I know it's the amount of memory and your knowledge, your ability to be able to retain this information is amazing. I'm sure hoping that one day you're going to do a blog and literally write all this down so people can look at it and confirm it and be able to see it for themselves. Because I know the dates and the numbers and the locations and all these things pretty well because I've been doing this for a long time myself. But for the average person hearing this, it's got to be blowing their minds.
Yeah, see, this whole thing is dialed in. There's a couple of things that are in addition to this Lucifer Day, for instance. You know, they like to use the number 33, and that's against the life of Christ. But one of the things they do on counts, you've already seen one count or two counts. You saw 421, add 4 months, 21 days, it's 9/11. 111 on both sides of it in day counts. Then you've got the 323 Lucifer Day. Add 3 months, 23 days, you're at 7/16. Okay, now here's the other one. If you take 323 and add 3 months and 3 days, you land on 626. What do those two numbers represent? 6 is the number of man, 26 is the number of God. What do you think they're trying to say there on that date? Man trying to be as God, which is going back to the original sin. Okay, guess what was chartered in San Francisco, where the U.S. Satanic Church was started in 1945? Guess what happened in San Francisco? The United Nations was chartered in San Francisco, which makes no sense because the building's in New York, which is 666 in English gematria. It was 626 day. Okay, now add 3 months and 3 days again. It's 929. Guess what happens in 1954 on 929? It's the birth of CERN. And this thing is in Geneva. It's over a Roman temple of Apollo, which is the Antichrist, the name for the Antichrist. 929, 1954. Okay, check this out. I guarantee you this stuff is coming, it's being done by fallen angels. Something is possessing the mind of these Roman, especially the Roman Empire, the emperor. If you go back to the year 131 AD, and I got this from a rabbi. they're all, they're all into the gematria. And he said that the value of Satan, his heavenly name, Samael, was 131. So, okay. That's starting to answer questions for me. So I went to the birthday of Rome in 131 AD, 421. And what happened in 131 Samael year? The Romans decided they wanted to rename Jerusalem. Go on, you can go to Wikipedia and find this. You won't see the 421 day, but what they did do is they changed it from Jerusalem, which is God's name for the city, to Aelia, Aelia, Capitolina. It means city of Zeus Satan. Now, if you go from 421, 131 AD to 929, 1954 AD, birth of CERN, is 666,000 days to the day. It doesn't end there. Here's another count that I'll give you before I end this thing, and it's part of the NASA Luciferian line garbage. If you go from Lucifer Day, there's 2 days that this Bavarian Illuminati used back in the year that the United States is born. The Bavarian Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt did that on May 1st. That's something I need to talk about. I'm going to write that down right now. We talked about this, Daniel, a little bit earlier, but this would be probably a good place to end. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Where was
I have one thing before you get completely done. I have one thing that I want you to spend 5 minutes on.
Okay.
So go ahead, though.
Let's see, where was I? Oh, let's see, March. What was I doing? I lost my train of thought there. The March 23rd date. Gosh, there's so many ways we could go with this thing. First thing I'll say is let's look at the March 23rd date in 1933. Guess what happens on that day, on Lucifer Day? Hitler is made the Fuhrer of Germany. And the first temple destruction date was 587 BC. Now let's use a Daniel number, 2520 Garrett. Let's do it in years. If you take and go from the destruction of the first temple, 587 BC, to 1933, sin in 33 year, Lucifer Day, it's 2,520 years. It lands on 1933. I don't think you can make that up. The day before that is whenever they opened the first concentration camp for business, which was on Skull and Bones Day in 1933. And if you go from 1933, 47 years, God of War later, that's the exact day that the Georgia Guidestones on Skull and Bones was dedicated. So these guys have used precise math all through time. And then you can look at Obama. Obama desecrates the Temple Mount on 3/22/2013. Go 33 years to the day, their calendar years, from the day that the Georgia Guidestones was dedicated. You can't make that up.
Yeah.
No. And then on top of that, here's another good one. Let's go from the first temple destruction in 587 BC. Now add 2013 to it. It's 2,600 years. It's a God number. So here's this clown who's using the life of Christ, and he's on the Temple Mount. And this happens 9 days after the Pope after Francis is made Pope, which is on 3/13, 2013. 9 days later, he's on Temple Mount. Okay, it gets even more complicated. If you take when the Temple Mount was retaken back on 6/7/1967, the Jewish IDF retook the Temple Mount that day, and go exactly 2,520 Garrett weeks, Daniel weeks in the future, it lands on the birthday of Jesus, 9/23/2015. And guess what 2015, 2016 is? It is the UN Luciferian Year of Light. And it even gets crazier. The 266th version of the Pope meets Obama at the White House on the birthday of Christ, 2,520 weeks after the Temple Mount's retaken.
Wow.
Yeah, on 266 Day. September 23rd, 2015 is the 266 Day. He's the 266th Pope.
What do you think about Obama quoting Psalms 46? Do you remember that?
Well, 46 is big to them because they like to look at the human chromosomes. It's just like this. I'm going to get on that next. But 46 is human chromosome years, right? They use that for years. Oklahoma is the 46th state. Now, if you go, here's another crazy thing: sex chromosomes split it in half. If you go from 9/23, 1992, add 23 years, it's dead on. Again, it's 9/23, 2015. The poser Pope meets Obama at the White House.
There you go. That's why I asked you the question. I knew you'd have
I don't think. I mean, this stuff is so dialed in. The math it's insane.
It gets
And
easy.
you know what it
Once you
tells
see
you
it
is,
enough, it gets easy.
huh?
Once you see it enough, it starts getting easy.
Absolutely. That's what's crazy about this. Now here's where it gets really crazy is that I'm convinced that Hitler was Satan in flesh. Okay, which would make sense if his grandson is the coming Antichrist. And when you see the math on that, it's mind blowing. But the birthday of Hitler was 4/20/1889. What did I tell you was the birthday of Rome? 4/21. You starting to see a connection here? Rome is born the day after the birthday of Hitler. Okay, the days of the beast, and you can research and figure this out. The eve of that starts on 19 April. So you've got the days of the beast starting on the eve. Hitler's birthday is on 4/20, and Rome's birthday is on 4/21. Now, the very center of that, of the only day that makes 666 in English gematria, and guess what? It also makes is 716 in Jewish gematria is May 1st, Beltane, High Human Sacrifice Day. I'm convinced that that's when the Antichrist is going to receive a mortal head wound and then will be resurrected on the May 3rd Maitreya Day. You know, they call that thing Maitreya. Well, there you go. It's an unholy resurrection. It's for second resurrection. It's the Leviathan spirit. I'm convinced of that. I've seen too much. But May 1st, Mayfirst, May Day, is 666. Now, that's 13 days later. That's the days of the beast. It goes from 19 April to May 1st. Now add 13 days to that. It's May 14th. What happened on May 14th? I'm not going to answer that. May 14th. Yeah, it's the birth of Israel. Okay, now take 13 and multiply it times 2. 26. My third grade math, the one thing they did teach us, right, I guess, is how to multiply, divide, add, subtract, that kind of stuff. Other than that, probably not much. But it's 26. So why do you think there's a negative connotation on the God number 26? Split it in half. It's 13. That's why there's a negative connotation. That's why May 1st is right in the middle of it. And here's where it gets crazy, even crazy. 19 April is when they started their blood rituals throughout time. If you go to 19 April, 1775, first bloodshed in the Revolutionary War. Now go to 19 April, 1861, first bloodshed Civil War. Now go to 19 April, 1993. It's the Waco massacre. Now go to 19 April 1995 in, guess what? The 46th human chromosome state, Oklahoma. That's OK City bombing. And just for adding it to it, the last year of that, of the 1999, before you go into another century, into 2000, 420, Hitler's birthday is the Columbine High School shooting. So, and these guys, and both those guys were Nazis. They were all into that stuff. So something was possessing them. They probably, something was in their ear telling me, hey, you need to go do this. You're on your father, the devil's on his birthday. So I don't know how you can make this stuff up. This stuff is pretty well dialed in. 419, 420, 421, 13 days later is a 666 day. Jewish gematria is a 716 day. And even to add more to it, it gets crazier. Go from the death day, the supposed death day of Hitler, which was 4/30, 1945, Walpurgisnacht, the eve of May 1st, right? Go 21 years to the day. Anton LaVey starts the U.S. Satanic Church on 4/30, 19, what year? 66. So here we go. 33 count from 1933, and you got it on 4/30, exactly 21 years after he fakes his death. And the Vietnam War is the same way. It was nothing but a satanic ritual. I can prove that. That's for another. We'll go into depth on that. Once people figure out, they get a basic knowledge of this stuff, and then I go off in tangents and we talk about certain things. You're going to figure out that war was never really designed to be won. It starts on the same day as the hydrogen bomb on All Saints Day, 111 Day. The Vietnam War starts on 11/1/1955, and guess when it ends? 4/30, Walpurgisnacht, 1975. So they use these numbers over and over and over again. It's once you see it, you can't unsee it. The mathematics around Hitler is absolutely mind-blowing, and his connection to Obama is mind-blowing. We can go back to one thing that probably is most important in this conversation is the actual lifespan of Christ, and this is why they protect and use this 33 as secret knowledge, is the life and death of Christ. His birthday was on 9/23 in the year 00 AD. Now, since they eliminated that year of his conception and his birth, if you go use this duration calculator and go, let's say, from 1 AD to 34 AD, which would be the year after, it's the same thing. You can get the same day count. Go from 9/23, 1 AD, to 4/3, Crucifixion Day, 34 AD, which it was in 33, but because it doesn't have a 0 year, I can't do that. It's exactly 11,880 days. He lived a perfect Daniel prophetic 33-year life. If you take the 360-day prophetic year and divide it into 11,880 days, absolutely perfect 33 prophetic years. So here we've got the Savior of the world living exactly 33 prophetic years, and I think there's an antithetical matrix expression that goes from the end of the U.S. nuclear testing program to this time. That's another discussion, but everything's lining up that something's getting ready to happen in this Abrahamic covenant fulfillment. You look at that timeline of 11,880 days, exactly 33 prophetic years. They use rituals against that count. Now, if you go to a lot of Bibles like the NIV and some of the other ones, guess what the middle verse of the Bible is? It's Psalm 118:8. Tell man to trust in God. It's the shortest verse. Then you got the longest chapter and the shortest chapter on both sides. And you've got 594 chapters on both sides. So what happens whenever you take the life of Christ of 11,880 days and divide it by 2? Split it in half, which is what they like to do. It's 5,940 days. Watch what happens whenever you take the fake death of Hitler on 4/20/1945 and go to the birth of Obama, supposedly, which I think, and what a guy told me on this channel gets 2 million hits, he was being processed out of the Illuminati and they took him off of there. They didn't like me talking to him. Is he said that Obama was actually manufactured, well, made what he is in a lab, an underground lab in Finland on the 8/4/1961 day. Guess how many days it is from the supposed death of Hitler to 8/4/1961? It's 5,940 days, which is exactly half the life of Christ. So they split the life of Christ in half. And if you go from the birth of Hitler, which was 4/20/1889, to that same day, it's 26,000 God number days plus 403. Where have you seen that number for? That was the crucifixion day of Christ. So what this stuff is doing is, what they've done is the ones that are the primary players for darkness have embraced this system. And whether it's actual biblical math or it comes from the Bible, everything is creating this antithetical expression in time with these prime players. For instance, here's another good one. I guess this probably ought to be towards the end of the broadcast. I run across this number 726. And if you look at Strong's Concordance, first of all, 7 is the perfect number of God, right? And 26 is the number of God. Now, let's look at the date, July 7/26. I think that might be the day and hour not known for the rapture. And here's why. This kind of stuff will be told to the prophets at the end, before. God doesn't do anything without talking to his prophets. That's what, Amos? That's out of Amos. Anyway, if you take the time from Adam's death, first man, 9:30, and a Monday from creation, and go to 1656, which is the flood year, it's 726 years. So here we've got a day 726, and if you look at harpazo, I think the Holy Spirit leads a lot of people different ways, and whoever's put this Strong's Concordance out has tapped into the spiritual warfare, and I'm convinced that the numbers are precise. The Holy Spirit is an advocate leading you to truth, and you take a look at it.
I've
and
seen
it's
enough
the number
to realize that it's concise.
It's 726 is the number of harpazo. So another thing is, if you look at English gematria, Revelation 726, God Almighty 726, Antichrist 726, Second Coming 726. I'm like, when I saw that, I literally fell out of my chair. And here's the other thing that gives credence to it. The Book of Daniel math works out with that date. And if you go back and look at the Eve date that they've used through time, the 716 date, which Washington, D.C. was conceived on, first major schism in Christianity, the start of the Islamic calendar, first fake moon mission, man landing on moon, that happens on that day. Another one was the Romanovs. The Roman Emperor Romanovs were their massacre started on 7/16/1918. So these people behind the scenes that are, in my opinion, are probably totally eternally damned, know what their time, because here's the thing that I think Jesus did for us is, you remember the Gerasene demoniacs? He went to them and he started tormenting, and the demons were talking to him, the legion demons. They were asking why he was tormenting them. He said, and they said, it's not our appointed time yet. What did they just tell you? They just told you that they know when this thing is going off. I think that's why Jesus did that. It's like he figured out, or he was trying to show us here in the end times that he didn't do it for them. He did it for us, because he wanted to let us know that they know when that appointed time is. And the only one that knows that up until this end time is God, and then in the Perusia, he's going to relay it to, anyone that's got ears to hear and eyes to see. So if you go and look in the book of Revelations, there's one thing in there that gets you, and it's the church of Smyrna. They're in Satan's prison for 10 days, right? Okay. Take 716 and add 10 days. It's 726. And if you go from, I told you the true year was 364 days. If you go from a 126 date and you go to a 726 date, it's 182 days. It's exactly half of 364. And it's in that July month, which seems to be a big deal. Um, this thing's on a Book of Daniel timetable. A lot of people say that the third temple needs to be built. What's already been done. And it said we would return to the times of Noah. I said earlier that the destruction of the first temple was 587 BC. Okay, here's something that's little known, and if you go look, you'll find it. 363 AD, May 1819. Right before that, or the year before that, Julian the apostate, the ruler of Jerusalem, told the Jews in name only that they could rebuild the temple. So these guys are building the temple, and guess what happens in 363 AD, May 18th, 19th? It's destroyed by an earthquake. Now, add 587 BC to 363 AD. It's 950 years. Who lived 950 years? Noah. Noah lived, so the actual physical temples in the Bible said he was the most righteous man of the time. You look at the physical temples here, it's 950 years of Noah that's involved in it. That third temple is not, and the thing is, you're not going to find, at least I can't find anything in Scripture that says that prior to the second coming of Christ that we need to have a third temple on this earth. That's not really biblical. And what's over there, the thing is, what they would do with that temple, if they go in there and gut a red heifer, first of all, it's not been a daily sacrifice, and it's not acceptable to God. The only thing that's acceptable to God is the sacrifice was the Son for our sin. So that whole process is garbage. The only thing that's been done through time is Holy Communion. So you've got churches out there that do this stuff every day. And the one thing that's really going to be a big change in the history of this world is whenever these guys get to the point that they have cessation of the daily sacrifice. It's got nothing to do with Jews in name only. God's not going to respect that. Everything that's really of Israel is on a spiritual level. It's a worldwide event because people say, well, that little postage stamp country over there in Mid-East is important. Well, yeah, it is. That's where Jerusalem's at, but only a remnant's going to be taken out of that place. But the whole world you got to be saved through Christ. So the tribes are here in concept, and the first one is Jeremiah 9, where Ephraim, which is the United States, where we're supposed to be the leaders of what? Democracy, demon rule. And it was done and the country's created on the day that Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit in 1776, which is a mirror image of when the first Babylonian king was made a sun god. I don't really think in 1776 AM, I don't think you can make that up. Anyway, that's the big lie that's told to the people on this earth. We're the spiritual tribes of Israel, because what happens whenever at the very end, whenever this place is destroyed by fire, which I think is a process, is what Elijah was talking about. He said, I'm not worthy to untie the sandal or loosen the sandals. He said that what comes after me will baptize by fire. So there's two things that's going to happen with this fire. It's a holy fire. It's either going to refine you in water and spirit and make you for heaven, because 1 Corinthians 15 says flesh and blood can't enter the kingdom of God. So you're going to have to be a spirit body to be in heaven. But it says in Revelations that the kingdom of heaven, that all the kingdoms of the world will be made the kingdom of God. And the only time that was even close to that, I think, was when Enoch ruled this world for 243 years. And that's why the synagogues of Satan created this calendar that's 243 years off, because what they're trying to do is take the closest that the kingdom of God's been here with the Enoch rule and eliminate it from time. And you can transpose this over the United States, and you can see what's going on there. There's some things I'd like to talk about next broadcast about George Washington. If you take here's what's crazy. Let's go back to this 1776 year, March 23rd, Lucifer Day, 1776. Goes 66,666 days to the day in the future. It lands on October 1st, 1958, and that is the day that NASA opened its doors. And this thing
Sounds
is
about right.
run by a former Nazi, Werner von Braun. Guess when Werner von Braun was born? 3/23/1912, Lucifer Day. And then you've got Dietrich Eckhart, who was the founder of Nazism and the mentor for Hitler. He was born on the same day. You shall know a tree by the fruit it bears. Dietrich Eckhart was born 3/23/1848. And I got a hold of a book. It was a guy that, I forgot the guy's name, but he wrote The Spear of Destiny. He started talking about Hitler, and Dietrich Eckhart kept really intense notes. They actually had the spear of Longinus that pierced Christ's side, and they went into a dungeon and turned it upside down. And he said that when Hitler gazed upon it, he was actually possessed by Satan. And there's also memoirs, because there's one country that he wouldn't have anything done to. It was Czechoslovakia. He used to go to some of the palatial estates there and run naked around and say that he was possessed by Satan. And all of my research tells me that there is an actual physical bottomless pit that's in Czechoslovakia, in Bohemia. Is Hauska Castle. And if you go research Hauska Castle, you're going to find some interesting things. That there's a big hole covered up, and there's a lot of they talk about a lot of demonic activity there. So I think this thing is actually a physical pit, bottomless pit on this flat earth. See, everything was done just like the globe, this globe ball, BAAL, hack it a little bit, globe ball. The whole thing is laid out with Babylonian sexagesimal math. You've got 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in a degree, and you've got what it works out to is in nautical miles is 21,600 nautical miles around the so-called circumference, which is 600 times 6 times 6. So the whole thing is Antichrist concept. It's 666 math, just like time. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. And what did God say? He said that no flesh would be saved unless time shortened. So my guess is, on another level, besides maybe using prophetic years, he's probably going to shorten time in a day. Something weird will happen, maybe an earthquake. But if you take all the components, 60 seconds, 6 plus 0 is 6, 60 minutes, 6 plus 0 is 6, 24 hours, 2 plus 4 is 6. So you put it all together, you've got the Antichrist number over the components of time in a day. And then you've also got the global thing with 21,600 miles. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Look at the year that the Georgia Guidestones was dedicated, 1980. What happens if you take 33 degrees and multiply it times 60 minutes in a degree? It's 1980. 1980 degrees. So these guys, there's more to it than that. David Flynn's got some incredible math. He's dead. I used some of his work to get where I got today. Really a brilliant man. It's worth researching the stuff that he did. But what these guys did was create a system against Christ. And even their Julian calendar. Look at this. In 1947, on the 29th of November, the UN created the state of Israel, Rothschild state of Israel. Guess what day that is? It's the 333rd day in a non-leap year. And it's also this. If you go to their false start date on the Julian calendar, and you look this up, matter of fact, you can probably find it on a NASA site. The start date is 1/1/4713 BC. Now add 1947 to 4713 BC. It's 6,660 years. You cannot make that up. That was completely by design, just like the Queen of England was in the 6 month, second day. Coronation was in the year 6666, 1953. Can't make that up either. But what these guys did was they tried to create basically what happened to Israel is it's like going in prison. It's like, okay, the children of Israel, even though it's starting at that point, it's kind of like going in reverse. You know, God had 70-year intervals before they could get their temple back or start a temple. So it's basically the same principle here, but this stuff is in reverse. You know, we're 75 years into this thing, and these guys that are Masons, Luciferian Masons, look at this. Let's look at Washington, D.C. for just a second. 77 God longitude. Then you've got this city that's bounded on water, Potomac, Mesopotamia, maybe, Alexandria. Okay. You start seeing that they're naming this stuff for what could be considered a mystery Babylon. Well, it's a diamond in the rough. It's got 3 straight sides and then bounded by water. So it's a diamond in the rough. On one side is Maryland, and on the other side is virginity. So here's what they did. They've got this Washington Monument, which is 6,660 inches tall. It's 555 feet tall, which is the Jewish gematria for Satan is 232. The Lucifer number is 323. Add them together, it's 555. The base of this thing is 66.6 feet wide. So the whole stinking math thing is set up on Antichrist. It's the phallus of Aton that's projecting up, and what it is trying to create the Antichrist through the whore of Babylon. And if you go look, you can look this up. The White House, you know, there's an owl. The Moloch owl is over Bohemian Grove. If you take the owl of Bohemian Grove and cast this thing over Washington, D.C., the pathways, everything make a perfect owl. I'm not kidding you. Go look up owl pics over Capitol Hill. Oh, it's Capitol Hill. It's not White House. I'm sorry. Capitol Hill, and you'll find out that it's an absolutely perfect owl. My feeling is that Lilith was in the abode of owls, and there's somebody that was supposed to go in there in dark prophecy as a president. It didn't happen. I'll let you do the math on that and figure out. But I think that's why this owl was cast over the top of this thing. But the mathematics around another number that these guys like to use is 27. They have a 27 club where some of these people that sold their soul to the devil, they died in the 27th year, which is 3 times 3 times 3 is fallen angel. And then you look at the date that the UN starts. It was on a 333 day in the year 6660, 1947. Well, look at the Roman year. The Roman, if you go to Wikipedia, one of the first things they put under the Gregorian is the Ob Urbe Condita, which is from the birth of Rome to whatever day it is now. So take 753 and add 1947 to it. It's the year 2700. Again, you can't make that up. The thing about it is that Genesis 1:1, the Hebrew value of Genesis 1:1 is 2,701. Is anything weird there? It's one more than this 2,700 count. Now go from 753 BC, Genesis 1:1, 2,701 years. It's 1948. Israel was born. You can't make that up. It gets worse. The UN resolution to create the state of Israel was 181. Okay, guess what Barack Obama is in Jewish gematria? It's 181. Now, take the Genesis 1:1 value in years of 2,701, and I'll get in. This is going to get crazy. And subtract the book of Daniel 525, 2,520. Wait and want. It is 181. So you've got a Barack Obama number, 181. You've got a UN resolution number, 181. If you take Genesis value 1:1 of 2701 and subtract Daniel 2520 from it, it's 181. Now take Jewish gematria, Barack Obama, number of a man. It's 666. Now take the name Obama. It's 84. What day did they say he was born? 84. 216 days, 6 times 6 times 6. So there's a lot more here.
And you've got Barack Obama literally in the Bible when you translate it back.
Yeah, we had that discussion. You're right.
Yeah, me and you did. But yeah, it means literally, Barack Obama means literally, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning, basically.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. You can't you can go look that up and verify it, along with all this other mathematical amazing work and study you've done. I mean, it's impressive, man. I tell you.
Well, here's another one. Y'all remember when the sundial was moved back 10 degrees in Hezekiah's reign? He cried to God for his life to be extended. What was it, 15 years? And I had to dig deep to find the year. And I'm convinced that that's when the calendar changed. It went, because of that shift, it went from 364 Enoch time to 365.25. Well, that year was 705 BC.
Well, the United Nations is actually talking about changing the calendar for the whole world again right now.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I got a good one on that, and I think you know what it is. But here's the thing. Look at this. They're both not the actual birth date of Obama was October 28, 1959. The birth date or when he was made what he is today in the underground lab in Finland was 646 days later, which is number of man, 46 number of human chromosomes. And when you see the math that's surrounding the Apollo 11 program, it'll blow your mind. For instance, if you go from his original birthday, which is 10/28, 1959, and go 3,553 days.
We've also got 144 people in the chat.
Okay. And you subtract or you divide it by 323 Lucifer number, it's 11. It lands on 7/20 1969, One Small Step for Man, One Giant Leap for Mankind. And if you go from, I'm trying to remember which one it was now. This is one I don't remember. It's 777 days from one of the 2 days, either 8/4/61 or 10/28/1959 to that day, 7/20, when they had the fake moonwalk. It's 777 days. And if you go from his birth, the real birth, 10/28/1959, to the very start of 6 Day War. What's 6 days? Man made on 6 days. Think it's a war on man? Okay. This is no lie. You go from that birthday that Martha Trowbridge gave me, I literally fell out of my chair when I went to 6/5/1967, started 6 Day Man War, 18th hour, 6 + 6 + 6, Jerusalem time. It is 66,666 hours from his birthday to the very start of the War on Man, 6 Day War. I'm telling you, the mathematics around this thing is literally mind blowing. And the thing that tells you that these companies and different things are part of this is, for instance, I told you the 333 or the 3-month 3-day math. The 3/23 was Lucifer Day, 6/26 is UN Day, 9/29 is CERN Day. What numbers did I just use? Anybody that's been on this world for a while knows where these numbers come from. 323 626 929. Illuminati Car Company, Mazda named 3 cars for that. Those numbers. You got what? 1,000 numbers, say from 1 to 1,000 to pick from, and you pick 323 626 and 929. You think maybe they're in your face, and this is a code for this stuff? Oh yeah. You can't.
That's
you really,
a lot of why we're glad you're here, Doug, and coming out and speaking with us like this, because not everybody has the ability to see these things clearly, but they need a teacher. They need someone to be able to help them understand how this
I'm
works.
not in it for the money. I'm here to get the message out.
Well, that's good because there ain't no money here.
I'm not looking for that. If I was, I'd have been one of those guys that did one chapter and put 10 fillers in it and put it out there and called it good. Made like day old bread or something. But I'm not. That's not my intent here. It's never been about the money, and
We can tell your intent.
it's to get it out. And all the years that I've meditated on Jeremiah 33:3 and prayed for the book of Daniel to become unsealed, I'd say that we're looking at some crazy things, and the characters are pretty much known. It's like this poser pope that's there now. This guy was born in 1936 on December 18th, which is the first. I'm pretty sure it's December 18th. It's the first day of Saturnalia Festival. To the day 11/29/1947, UN Resolution 181, create Rothschild Israel, is exactly 4,000 days. Now, there's a date that these guys use. It's 2/4. 2/4 is the conception day of the Antichrist. If you go behind 10/28/1959, 266 days, you're going to land on 2/4. Super Bowl time, right? 1959, 266 days is 2/4. Well, guess what the UN did on the end of the UN Year of Light on 2/4/2016. You look this up. They went to the Pyramid of the Sun. What's the Antichrist? False son of God, of Zeus, Satan. Okay. They went to the Pyramid of the Sun in Chichen Itza, Mexico. They had this ceremony. This thing is a solar-based Pyramid of the Sun. It has 365 steps on it. Okay. Guess what happens? Exactly 365 days later, on 2/4/2017, Obama, from the 8/4/1961 date, is exactly 666 months old. Can't make that up. Then, in that same year, on 9/23, birthday of Christ, as far as Gregorian calendar is concerned, 2017 is exactly 33 weeks later to the day. And that's the same year that the solar eclipse, the first one, took place, which was August 21st, 2017.
All right. Okay, Doug, hold that thought right there, because that's exactly what I wanted to have you spend a few minutes on, which is the last eclipse and this coming eclipse, the one here in 2024.
Oh, this is crazy stuff,
So you
man.
came around to it, amazingly enough.
And I think
I'd
we're
like
all led
to,
by the Holy Spirit in this.
but I'm requesting you to bounce around this subject matter of these dates related to this eclipse, and any knowledge or anything that you can see related to that.
Well,
I'd like to hear
I
it.
think the real true New Year is what God gave to Moses. As far as I can tell, biblically, I've never seen anything else said other than it starts on Nisan 1, Abib 1, which is generally in late March, early April, about the same time of crucifixion. So, what's weird about this thing is that the timetable. Let's start out with this 1/26/1900 date. What did God say that His Spirit would stay with us? 120 years to Noah, right? Okay. Let's go to this 126 shekel day. 120 years later, 2020. What happened? It is exactly 888 days past 8/21/2017, which is the first U.S. solar eclipse. Kobe Bryant, who I've got a lot of research on, mind-blowing stuff, he dies that day, and also all hell breaks loose. It's 120 years from the very start of this thing, from the 1/26/1900 to 1/126/2020, and we all know what happens right around that time. It's all by design. So the thing is, what's crazy about this is that the 4/8 date is the U.S. solar eclipse this year. Now, the very next day is Abib 1. It's God's New Year. So it's either the 75th or the 76th year from the start of Israel, which is 1948. And we know that 75th year from Genesis is when God made His covenant with Abraham, said His children would inherit the land. Abraham was in his 75th year. That's biblical. So, and he was born in 1948. So there's a mirror image here. God's math. I don't know if anybody else is blown away. I'm totally blown away. I'm like, wow. But you got 120 years to 1/26/2020. Then you've got this 75th, 76th year that's coming up at the U.S. solar eclipse. We're told to watch signs in the sky, right? And guess what this thing does? It makes an X. Nimrod sun, right? The first one's coming from Oregon, going out 33rd parallel, basically out of Charleston. This other one
McClellanville, just north of Charleston. I was standing on the 33rd when it crossed over that day.
Oh, wow, man. You don't do that by accident.
Yep, I was there.
Yeah. So that it all comes to this time. Everybody's is here for reasons. They're put in places for reasons. But if you look at it, this thing actually intersects. It's around Cairo, Illinois.
Yep.
And guess what that place is called? You were the one that brought that up, and I'd actually forgotten about it. It was in my research. It's called Little Egypt.
Little Egypt. It's where two rivers come together.
Yeah. See, the Masons laid this country out, and what they did was they took. If you go, they say there's only 33 degrees in Masonry, but there's more than that. And they tried to take this stuff off the air, and I think I've got it on screenshot on the old computer. The 90th degree of Egyptian masonry is the summation of the degrees before it, and guess what it's called? It's called the Rite of Memphis. Well, guess what? 90 runs through Memphis, Tennessee. It's 90 west longitude. Now, go 33 degrees west of that, you're at 123 west longitude. Well, guess what that runs through? 33 degrees past the right of Memphis. It runs dead slap center of Bohemian Grove, which is in, check this out. This thing is in Sonoma County. They're into hacking words. And here's what I know for sure about how they like to reverse words, hack words. What does that make? They burn an effigy of a man in there, and everything looks like they're in front of this Alamo lock, and it's at the river Styx, all hellbound, and they're in their black robes. It's in Sonoma County. What happens if you put an F after the second O and an N after the MA? Son of man. So this thing's at 123 west longitude, and if you go look at what day that is on the calendar, non-leap year, it's the 5-3 date, which would be third day in the holy resurrection of the Antichrist, which I'm convinced is a 5-3 day Maitreya. May is MAI is French for May, and Treya, I guess you call that Old English, but basically says May 3rd. And I'm convinced they've used a lot of things against Christ. And, 53 is the count from his crucifixion, 3 days in the ground, 40 days. Then he ascends into heaven, and 10 days later, Holy Spirit comes down on 120 in the upper room. So that's a 53-day process. And then you go look at this 5-3 date, 5 divided by 3. There's a bank actually called what, Fifth Earth? Wonder why. Herbie Lovebug, 53. There were 53 countries in the British Commonwealth. 53. The Alonzo Stagg, who was Skull and Bones, started NFL. There's 53 players on the team. And it's on Sunday, which is their Solus Deus Day. That's not really, I mean, a lot of people think Sunday is, but as far as I can tell, the real Sabbath never changed. But a lot of things have just been completely hijacked. So we were celebrating the birthday of Christ on Sol Invictus, which is when Nimrod's born. And all the mathematics that I see, if you use, this is Book of Daniel, and this is for another discussion, but there's another thing in Daniel. It's called time times and a half. It's 725. What did I tell you that the day and hour was not known as? 726. Well, if you look at the Mayans actually said the day and hour not known is 725, 726. And here's Daniel's verse at 725 times and a half. If you take the 7,000 year or 7 days, 7,000 years of God, he had 7 days creation and rest, and divide it in half, you got 3,500 years. You got a 3.5. Time is 1, times is double, which is 2, and half is 0.5, so it's 3.5. This thing is going to a reset button. And if you go to, I'm thinking that because of the Daniel math here in the future, the 2 witnesses are going to be killed on Nimrod's birthday on 12/25. And what happens 3.5 days later? That's when they're resurrected. That's going to be the refinement by fire or destruction by fire, depending on whether you got a Book of Life name or not. That's the first resurrection. So 3.5 days, and then you've got 3 days, which is the Jesus said that it wouldn't be built by human hands. The temple will be built by him. So if you take 12/29, which would be 3.5 days after 12/25, then you're going to be at the new year. what happened on the new year. If we're in the true Alpha and Omega process, if God came in flesh on a 1-1 day, then we're going to end it on a 1-1 day. That's the beginning of the millennial reign. It's going to be, 1-1 day in the future. So this thing is completely synchronistic. What kind of lends itself that there's something with Obama involved here is this 9. You remember I told you the current poser pope was elected 3/13/2013, 2600 God years after the first temple destruction. Then Obama is 33 years after the Georgia Guidestones were dedicated to the day. He's on the Temple Mount desecrating it. That's 9 days later. Now, go 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days. You're at 1231, which would be the same count going to the future millennial reign. That is the day that Pope Benedict died. 9 years, 9 months, 9 days after 3/22/2013. And the other Pope was 9 days before that. I don't know how you make that up. It gets even worse. These guys that are involved in this stuff, the past presidents, people that are there now, Herbert Hoover's a good one. You know, the Hoover Dam is basically 726 feet tall, if I'm not mistaken, which is that rapture number. But Herbert Hoover, the old presidential inauguration date was on 3/4, which is Constitution Day. You can go look at what he says about the Bohemian Grove bunch. What's weird about, I'll sidetrack a little bit. Bohemian Grove has exactly 2,700 acres. 300 times 3 times 3. So they use that 27 over and over again. But this guy was, he was inaugurated on 3/4/1929. Exactly 666 weeks later was 12/7/1941, bombing of Pearl Harbor, to the day. What did I tell you the God of War cycle was? 47 years, Mars? Add 47 years to 12/7/1941. You're at 12/7/1988. Now add 666 weeks again to the day. It's 9/11/2001. Not only that,
Hey Doug,
yes.
During the eclipse when it goes dark, that Mars is going to be one of the planets that are going to be visible. I've got on the screen right now so people can see. There's Mars, Saturn, Venus is going to be very bright. Jupiter is going to be very bright. Uranus will be able to be seen. And there's also a comet that will be seen, that you'll be able to see in the sky to the top, to the left and upper left, just a little bit to the left. It's called the Devil's Comet.
There's nothing by chance, man. Every bit of this, when you look up there,
12P, Pons Brook. So when the eclipse happens, we're going to have an alignment of Mars, Saturn, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Uranus, all in a straight line, and a comet that they've nicknamed the Devil's Comet at the same time. And that brings me to another point that I wanted to make sure everybody realizes, because there's a lot of people watching, and that is on the Supernatural Show website. I have a page right here on the very front. When you come to the home page, you'll see right here on the second tab, 2024 Great Eclipse. 2024 Great Eclipse. I'm looking for people who can just simply hold their camera at the sky, and just kind of like what Doug's doing is just, you'll be in the studio, except Doug doesn't have a camera on, but you'll be in the studio and you'll just be filming the sky, filming yourself. And what we're going to do is we're going to stream people's cameras from when this thing comes in across Mexico. During totality, we want to stream people all the way up as it comes across and crosses over the center of the United States and all the way up through Maine and into New Brunswick. You can come to the website and register to be one of those cameramen. If you're going to be in this totality area, or if you can be in the totality area, I'm giving you a chance to be part of the first thing, something that's the first time it's ever been done in the history of that I'm aware of, anyways, is we're going to film the totality because I believe that there's something that's going to be of great significance
Oh yeah, yeah.
happening.
All these signs are. Here's the crazy thing. You're in that Abrahamic fulfillment year, and there's more to this than what I just said. The 75, 76 year, which is when God gave the covenant with him, 1948, 75, 2023, 2024 on both sides, which is insane. But if you got here's another thing to look for, and our team is we've looked at the in modern recorded history, the strongest earthquake that's ever been was the Valdivia earthquake in Chile. It was on 5/22/1960. And I prayed about that. I said, there's something really big here. For this to be the greatest earthquake, it had to be announcing something. Well, here's what I think it was. The Bible in Psalms 90 tells you the life of man is 7 years now, right? Okay. Here's the other thing the Bible tells you. How many generations are there from Abraham to Jesus? 42, right? Now, take 1960 and divide it by 70, a generation. It's 28. 70 years. Now, add from the time of Christ, 42 plus 28. It's the 70th generation. I'm thinking that thing announced the 70th generation on Earth. I'm getting chills right now. Now go 333 weeks and 3 days. And guess where you land at? You land on a B1, which is 2024, April 9th. It's the very new year that God told Moses to institute. It's landing on that, and it's right after the U.S. solar eclipse. So I'm just seeing this math, and I'm like, wow, this thing is really, really going crazy.
What
Uh,
you going to go into next time, Doug? Because I know we're coming up on you having to get out of here. So,
yeah,
what
yeah.
is it? Give us just a hint as to what you might talk
It's
about next time.
it's Hitler math, um, and the use of this 2520. I'll go ahead and tell you this one right now. Um, a lot of people don't know when the first Passover was, and it gets confused, and I think it's done on purpose by the fake Jewish calendar. Says there's 37 Jesus and 61 God years before the Anno Domini age. And before I get into that, the crazy thing about this 3773 number, that's the Jesus and Christ code. Multiply those two together. It's 2,701, which is the value of Genesis 1:1, which would be like going beginning to end, going back to the start. So it's that value. Now take the reverse of it, 1,072, add it to 2,701. It's 3,773. So there's nothing that I've explained here that's not precise math. And what's crazy about it is that you can go all the way back through antiquity, and you can see that this stuff was absolutely precise. For instance, this 2520 number, if you take that number, I'd have to add it up here, but I believe it's 2016 UN year of light. Take the other number, the times and a half, 3.5, do it in thousands, 3,500 years, which would be half of 7,000, which would be 7 days of the Lord. And then the 252 number will take you to 2016, which is the end of the UN year of light. Now, if you take 4,004, which is the true count I'm convinced of, and subtract 2520 from it, it's 1484 BC, which is, I'm convinced, the year that the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. I had Passover, Red Sea, all that stuff. And if you add 40, 40 years to that, which is how long they were in the desert, and then Joshua takes them into the promised land. That puts you at 1444, right?
That sounds correct.
Okay, now check this out. There is a counterproductive system here. The Roman system. Let's go to the false. The dedication date of the false. Well, I think is the abomination of desolation, which is the Golden Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. It was dedicated in 691 A.D. Add 753 B.C. Start Rome to that. It's the same number. It's 1444 years. I don't think you can make that up. So they're doing something, an antithetical expression there. Now let's go to the death or the birth year of Hitler, 1889. If Joshua brought them into the promised land in 1444 BC, add 1889 to it. It's 3,333 years. So I'm convinced that these Theosophists, these Luciferians, like Albert Pike and all of them that were in the late 1800s, knew that Satan was going to appear in flesh. And people say, well, I don't know if that's true or not. Well, not only was he made the Fuhrer on Lucifer Day 1933, but his grandson Obama actually had Obamacare passed, which has a clause in it for beheading. Not many people know about. It was done on the same day, 2010. Go look it up. Lucifer Day 2010, and it was done by guess what number session of Congress? 111. So I rest my case, man.
Well, I think, Doug, let's see what Shannon's thinking. She's about to die to say something. So,
okay.
What were you thinking, Shannon?
I'm just concurring with what he's saying about the code to have you beheaded in Obamacare. And I mean, I have been buzzing, you guys, like this whole time. Everything he's been saying, not only was I shown in 2013 years ago, but continually have dreams and confirmations, and then literally just last night had this profound dream that I explained before he even started talking about any of this, and he has hit on so many things I cannot. It's just blowing my mind right now. It's just,
Yeah, well, I told you. Yeah, he's got an incredible memory. And Doug, I think it's about time we're gonna wrap this show up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Taking over 2 hours out of your day.
Yeah, it's but you know, at the end of this thing, this book of Daniel math is so precise.
It's incredible, yeah.
At that 3.5, you can see how this thing is split in half. 3,500 years, then it goes down to 350 years, and if you go back and look at the year, and you can't make this up either. 1666 was the year that mankind was declared dead by the Cestui-Que-Vie Act. It was the same year that that London burned. Now go 350 years in the future. It's the UN Year of Light, and the end of it, 2016. I rest my case. But this thing is going down to a 0 point, because when you've got 2 witnesses that die in the streets of Jerusalem, 3.5 days later is whenever this thing ends. Jesus comes back with his army. This world's destroyed by fire. You're either refined by it and with your book of life name and made for heaven. And, you know, there's another thing that I'll mention, and I think the Holy Spirit told me to do this, is that, you know, at the end of time, when there's a rapture, it says that the stars will fall from the heavens, a third of them. Well, how many, what part of heaven was fallen? 1/3? It says they'll fall as unripened figs, and the rest of it will be rolled up in the scroll. So what if the star are the seeds up there are us rolled up in the scroll, the book of life. 2/3 of it is in that. The whole heavens is like representing what's here on this earth in some capacity.
My understanding is similar in that the occultist Crowley, he's famous for saying, "As above, so below." So whatever is down here is also up there, and
Right.
and it's perfect in its mirror imagery and stuff. So I don't think they're far off somehow. I don't know exactly how.
No, when it says 1/3, and here's the other thing, I will leave this on.
It's interesting too, Doug, that Musk has 33,000 satellites planned to be put up.
Oh, that's for another episode.
Yeah,
This guy, oh my goodness.
we could get way in him.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the reason why 9/11 2001 was used. Go back to the original sin. What did the devil, the serpent, tell Eve? That she could be as a god if she ate the forbidden fruit? I'm gonna spill the beans on it. I know what it is. It's the fig. Guess what speaks at Judges 9:11? It's the fig tree. What did Adam and Eve wear?
Guess
what did Adam and Eve wear after they ate from the forbidden tree?
A fig leaf.
Fig leaves. So what does that tell you? One thing. It tells you that at least the fig tree was in the Garden of Eden, right?
Right.
Okay. So, and they're pretty big leaves. The other thing that gets you is whenever Nathaniel, when he was called out from under what? The fig tree. And Jesus, and he recognized God in flesh, and Jesus told him, he said, "You'll see angels descending in us and ascending." So I'm thinking, and that he said he had no guile in his tongue. You know what I think that was the seed for? I believe Nathaniel may be the first one of the 144,000, because if you go read Revelations, most of the translations tell you that they don't have any guile in their tongue. And I read that and I got chills. I said, "Oh my God, there it is. There's the beginning of it right there."
Since I moved into this house, I've seen angels ascending.
Oh yeah, they're all around.
Mm-hmm.
They're all around. I mean, all of us have a guardian.
Literally, with my eyes, I've seen them.
Yeah.
You probably heard me talk about that kind of stuff before.
Yeah, they're around.
Yep, they're always around.
I'll tell you about my spiritual experience later on. It's not really for today, but
yeah, well, we'll get into it. But I do greatly appreciate you coming today. You've given us all an enormous amount to think about, and I'm sure that there'll be quite a few people out there that'll go back and watch this video again and try to comprehend all the information that you've shared with us today, Doug.
Well, I'll tell you, if they will compile, if there's questions on any of this, or most this stuff is all totally integrated and synchronistic. After 30 years of work and meditating, there's nothing really left for chance as far as the numbers. If anybody's got any questions, I don't get to see all that stuff, but if there's something that I can answer or give to you or whatever, or anybody on the panel, I'll be more than happy to do it. And we're just planning on a date to probably go down maybe a couple of tangents and expound on how these things happen and the durations that are involved. Hitler's a big one. Obama's a big one. There's other people that Donald Trump's involved in this. I mean,
oh yeah.
When you can take the birthday of Hitler, 4/20/1889, and go to 1/20/2017, his inauguration date, and it's exactly 6,666 weeks to the day. I don't think you can make that up.
Yep.
And then go from his birthday to the eve of the end of the Mayan calendar. He's 66 years, 6 months, and 6 days old. There's a lot more, but I mean, these people that are here now are here by decision. You look at Christ and 40 days of temptation. Think about all the people that's on this earth that have done what he couldn't do. That's why they're rulers or whatever. They sold their souls to the devil. So That's what that's what's ruling this country, and that's why
they're damned and they know it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
There's these people there's multi-generational Satanists. It's just like, I'll give you a good instance. 1856 is when they created the tomb up at Skull and Bones location in Yale University. It is 666,000 days to 9/11, 1856, the year they made that tomb, from the crucifixion of Christ. Here's what I think these guys have done. I think they go in this tomb and they're basically taking the spirit of the Antichrist. They're taking that Leviathan spirit. They're going in that tomb and they're basically aligning themselves with this unholy resurrection of this guy. For instance, let's see. If you take here's what's crazy about this Golden Dome of the Rock. The verses that are around it are totally Antichrist. It said that God doesn't have a son, basically. It's 1930 to 1935. 1933 is right in the middle. What? That was the year Hitler was made Führer. That's the verses. It's 360 degrees around. This thing was dedicated in 691 AD. Guess how tall this thing is? 69 feet and 1 inch. I don't think you make that up. Now, if you take 666 and multiply it times 2, it's 1332, and we know that 1335 is a day count for Daniel. Do it in years. 691 plus 1332 is 2023. So I would say that something is getting ready to pop.
Well, let's plan on trying to get back into that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. There's plenty on that. And then you've got Mecca, Saudi Arabia, which I'm pretty sure Jewish gematria is 666. You go from the Kaaba stone, or the Kaaba, which means cube, go 666.6 nautical miles, which is based on the Babylonian, 21,600 circumference, 666 thing. You're on the Temple Mount. That's not my calculation. I forgot the guy who did that, but man, I thought that's pretty cool for somebody to figure that out. But here's what I think happened with this thing is that in the Devil's Triangle, there is something that's a sentient cube. There's some type of pre-flood device that's there that warps time and matter, and it's working in concert with CERN. Look at what happened. Look at what the name of the country is that's below the United States, that they allowed a dictator, Fidel Castro, to be over. And here's the reason why they allowed this guy to be over that country. They can say, oh, they can take him out anytime. Well, they could have. They could blown the whole country if they wanted to, but they didn't. What is the name of this place? It's Cuba. Kaaba, Cube. And there's all kinds of things off the shores of that. And I got a feeling that this Illuminati crowd did not want the shores of that country to be developed in this time, because what you're going to find is pre-flood artifacts. If you look at old Jewish scripture, this place was basically a Panagia. It was a one world. And after the flood, it turned into 7, I believe they call it columns, continents. Take a look at the shorelines of North America and South America. Now go look at the shorelines of Europe and Africa, and tell me what happens when you push those two things together. They're congruent.
All one continent.
Yeah. And this will be for another episode, but I got a feeling that the Egyptian princess that helped Jeremiah out brought the Ark of the Covenant out of there, and I think it's here in the United States, and that's for the next time. That's going down another rabbit hole.
I've theorized myself quite a bit about the fact of what they say America is or was is the exact opposite.
Oh yeah, Grand Canyon is 666. That thing's full of Egyptian artifacts, and they're totally off limits. That's
Yep.
against fed. That's a felony to go in there. But you know why it is? Because that big thing was dug out by a flood. It's not millions of years old.
That
They
was
would
a
want.
quick
They
washout.
want you.
Yeah. That looks
Yeah,
like a
I mean,
washout.
even the name of the state. Guess what the name of the state is? You know, in the Babylonian religion, that prostitution is sacred. Now, go look at the name of the state that it's in. Eri, high eagle. Zona is a Hebrew word for Kadesha, which means woman of ill repute. So the name Arizona actually says high prostitute. And then the capital of the state is Phoenix, which is a bird that's supposed to be reborn come from the ashes and be reborn every 500 years. You can't make that up. And in the Bible, if you go back and look at the books of the Bible, Enoch, or outside the Bible, books of Enoch, the Nephilim could only live 500 years. Well, take a look at when a Moloch worshiping Christopher Columbus supposedly discovered this world 9 months and 11 days after the New Year on October 12th, 1492. Add 500 years to it. It's 1992. In the U.S. nuclear testing program on the birthday of Jesus. But this 1492, if you take the beginning of democracy, which was 508 BC, you go to that year that they started the Sol Invictus for Apollo 158 is 666 years. Now add 1492 to it. It's 2000th year of democracy is when Columbus came over here. So they've got this thing completely wrapped up. This thing with Columbus is a total bold-faced lie. This used to be a Pangaea. And the last thing they want you to know is that, think about it. If everything was covered by water, the whole world was destroyed by it, what are we walking on now? It had to arise out of the floodwaters, didn't it? So we are basically back at the times of Noah. All this stuff that we're walking on right now is the same thing. And all the mysteries that are in this country, including the Grand Canyon, they don't want you to know that because there's nothing new under the sun. So this Egyptian crap, which, you know, the Antichrist, whenever he's in the city of Jerusalem, that's supposed to have the spirit of Egypt and sodomy, when you go look at what's over there in the Grand Canyon, that would tell you that somehow they had to be able to, the Egyptians had to be there. All this stuff, all these artifacts that are here.
The American Indian, because if you're looking at American Indian, their facial structure and a lot of things sure does look a lot like Egyptians.
Yeah. I really think that survivors are, and there was another thing that's basically on a 3,500 year interval was back, and this is from the Colburn Bible. Whenever the 10 plagues of Egypt was here, that's whenever this Nibiru came over. Which is, that's pretty much biblical. That's the destroyer. The destroyer was actually here whenever Moses and the Israelites were out in the desert. I think maybe God kept them in safekeeping because that may have been the
what if that shows up during the eclipse?
Yeah.
We got a comet. Nobody ain't ever seen a comet during an eclipse. Not at least in my lifetime, anyways. We got a comet that's going to be in the sky during the eclipse. That's called the Devil's Comet. I mean,
all this stuff is named for stuff that's important. Like, okay, where were they at? Sinai Peninsula? What did that just say? Sin, AI 1919, and Peninsula, I believe it's English gematria is 666. So all this stuff is by design. I mean, even the Jordan River where Jesus was baptized at, Jor means elevate, and Dan is the fallen tribe of Israel. So if you go from Mount Hermon, where the 200 fallen angels descended and made their covenant against God, guess where the source of the Jordan River is at? Mount Hermon. What does it run into? The lowest point on earth, which is called what? The Dead Sea. I don't think you can make that up. And then you look at the two places that were destroyed by fire that's right there at the Dead Sea, Sodom and Gomorrah, and it kind of tells you what's going on here is that these people that are involved with darkness are in the low points because it gets them closer to hell. That's just how this thing works. It's even like Death Valley out in California. If you take and draw a straight line through it from hack name of Son of Man, Sonoma County, where Bohemian Grove is, and go to guess what? Sun Valley or Sun City. Sun City is 666. In Arizona, it's 666 miles at Sun Valley. Look what's below it. It's the Egyptian name, Sonora Desert. What does that tell you? Son of Ra. I mean, once you see this stuff, when the scales come off your eyes, you're like, wow. It's just jumping off the page at you.
Indeed it is, Doug. Well, my brother, we're going to have to wrap it up here for today. We're about 2 hours and 37 minutes in, and I know I told
I need to get going.
It would be 2 hours, and I told you 2 hours, and we're already 37 over. So, again,
that's fine.
Thank you for being here today on the Supernatural Show. And, of course, I thank my lovely co-host, Shannon, and, of course, my lovely advisor, Dan. And you do say you're good looking, right, Dan?
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
He is gorgeous. So, but as I told you, Doug, my dog ate my phone, but I'll stay in touch with you.
Story, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But I'll stay in touch with you by Google Voice here for a day or two until I can manage to get a hold of another phone.
All right.
And but again, thank you very much. Thank everybody for watching today. Thank everybody for being here. There's a lot of information to soak up, and we definitely have an open door for you to be able to come back again on the show. As a matter of fact, I think you basically need your own show. And I'd actually be happy to provide that for you, probably through the system that I'm putting together. So, but we'll talk about all that. But again, thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for watching. And we're going to go ahead and get on out of here today, since we are so long today. I love you all. Thank you all for being here. And we'll see you next time here on the Supernatural Show.
Thank you. Have a blessed